like, oh, it was like a,
Yeah.
I was like, you made this company for me. Cause it's not, it's almost like people who aren't in it, they couldn't grasp the fact that I'm
Mhm.
like, you're investing in inventory. Once it comes, I can pay you back because it will be here to sell. And so, but still, they just wouldn't. I mean, they're like, that's just the process is you have to pay back right away. And so that's all I needed was someplace that could wait until our inventory was here, and then we could easily pay it back. And so that's
Yeah.
been like a godsend.
So today we have Christina, founder of Ellie and Becks. Hi, Christina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Caitlin?
I'm good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, Ellie and Becks?
Sure. Ellie and Becks was inspired by our kids, Ellis and Beckett. That's why I started it. There's a long story of how it came to be, but basically, I saw a lack of options for diverse dolls, books, toys when they were younger. And that sort of made me think back to when I was a kid and none of that stuff was available at all. And so now, as a parent, I had to go, it's available, but you have to search for it. And so I thought, well, why not have a one-stop shop for everyone to just come and be able to, get all of those things in one place. And so it started as just a passion project. Somehow I went down the rabbit hole of rattan. I owned a photography business before Ellie and Becks, and I had issues finding rattan pieces. Went down a black hole, like looking for sources for that. I love interior design and children's products, so decided to combine those, design our own rattan pieces. Thought it was going to be this, I was like, we're going to take this slow. We're just going to see where it goes, and I just had no idea how it would be received, which was, amazingly by our customers. Like it was a little overwhelming. It still is because it's kind of been dragging us along, but it's been fun and definitely a learning experience. And so, yeah, that's what it is now. It's still just a place for diverse books, dolls, toys, and then also our custom rattan pieces.
That's awesome. And what were some of the challenges that you faced starting your business as a female?
Um, That's hard to say because I've only ever been a female, so I don't know, but I know it's the same dynamic as, day to day. And I was in corporate America for a while, for 10 years. And so it's a lot of those similar challenges of not being taken seriously. I look young. And so, I would be in meetings in corporate America and people would come in and assume I was the youngest person in the room, even though I wasn't. I just look younger. And so it's just that same dynamic of talking to investors, talking to people where you have to work 3 times as hard. You have to have all of your numbers ready. Like you have to be really on top of things. Like your confidence alone is not enough. And I think like for males, that's not the case. Like they can come in and talk a big game and that's enough. And for us, it's not. They need to see the numbers. They need to know, they need to ask, oh, well, as a mom, are you going to be able to do it? As a mom, it is very, very hard to do it as well. So I think that's one of the challenges of being a female entrepreneur is both the expectations that people, or the low expectations that people have of you, and then the high expectations you have of yourself, both for the business, but then also personally. For me, that's been a huge challenge, and that I'm still trying to do all the stuff I did before, like cook and volunteer and do all this stuff. And it's like, I need like 4 of me to do it. So it's been a little bit, it's kind of, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I just think that you can't have it all. You do have to choose. Like you either have to scale back. You can't just go and chase every opportunity when you're a female. You have to kind of balance and prioritize as you go. So, yeah.
And did you find any challenges with finding funding?
Yes. That was another thing is that when we started, I was going to start small. So there was no part of me that was like, oh, we need funding because we need more. I was like, oh, we'll just start with one. But when you're an inventory based business, even if you start to grow a tiny bit, especially with products like ours that have an 8-week production turnaround, and then it used to be 4 weeks to get here. And now with the, supply chain issues, it's like, who knows when it's going to get here. So there's a huge period where you're having to pre-buy inventory because the suppliers won't make your products without you paying them. And then it takes this much time to get there and you have no money for operating expenses. And these containers are expensive. And so having to float that amount of money and then wait for it to come. It's just the timeframes are so long that it's very hard to be like waiting for the products to sell and then you putting that money back in. Like you need some sort of push of cash flow to be able to scale even a little bit, much less a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you choose Kickbridge inventory funding?
Oh, well, the funny thing is Kickfurther found me. I think that Mario, was the one that reached out. But before that, I had gone down the route of, the only ones that you really hear about are either VCs, the investor route, which is we are still sometimes going down that route. It's so time consuming. It's very exhausting. Like if you're already short staffed, it's a full-time job looking for funding that way. And then option 2 is go and take a loan for like 30%, which we did a little bit of that here and there, Shopify Capital. And it helps, like when you're smaller, it definitely helps if you just need a little bit. But when you're needing, as much as we were, it just doesn't cut it. And it just creates more problems. And the time frame is what got me, because with loans, typical loans, you have to start paying it back right away, but you don't get the inventory for 6 months. So I kept thinking, if only there was a place that I could borrow the money and then start paying it back once it comes. I didn't know it was a thing. So when Mario reached out and I had my first call with him, I was like, oh, it was like
yeah.
I was like, you made this company for me. Because, it's almost like people who aren't in it, they couldn't grasp the fact that I'm like, you're investing in inventory. Once it comes, I can pay you back because it will be here to sell. And so, but still, they just wouldn't. They're like, that's just the process is you have to pay back right away. And so that's all I needed was someplace that could wait until our inventory was here, and then we could easily pay it back. And so that's been like a godsend to have that option. Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to a female entrepreneur who's just starting out?
Don't do it. I'm just kidding. But I'm half kidding, but I will say that I think that it's super irresponsible today's culture of just like hustle culture and really promoting this glamorized view of like what owning a business can be. Yeah. It definitely has been that way here and there. It's exciting and opportunities are exciting and building things is super exciting, but it doesn't come without a price. And the price is very high. I think no matter how small your business is, like there's no like, oh, I'm going to go on vacation or, oh, I'm going to do this. And so you kind of have to come in with eyes wide open, and you have to make sure that you don't, I'm someone that is super creative and super spontaneous. And so I follow things. I'm like, I have that, what is it called? Like squirrel. I get really distracted. And it really hurt me because I wish that I had paused instead of focusing on new products. I would have focused on accounting. And so I think just planning out our next 2 years, baking out these scenarios, like all of that back end stuff. If you don't like doing administrative stuff, then you should probably reconsider, because it is, I would say it's like 70% that and 30% doing the stuff that you enjoy doing until you can afford to hire help. But until then, like you have to do it all yourself. And if you are not clear about your books and calculating your cost of goods and making sure that you're profitable, you're basically throwing your time and your energy away for nothing. And it's very easy to lose sight of how much profit you're making if you're not keeping track of those things. Yep. So I would just say, like, just make sure that once you do decide what it is you want to do, make sure that you understand everything that goes into it, from packaging to, shipping to returns and all that stuff. And you've calculated, I think everybody goes into this saying, oh my gosh, why is everything so expensive? Like, why do people charge so much? It's like, well, they charge so much so that when shipping is 6 times what it was, or when customers return stuff, like you have a little bit of that margin. So I would say that that's the most important thing, is just making sure you're setting yourself up for success, and that the product and, creating the business is not like the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like you just got to figure out if it's viable or not and worth your time.
That's great. And what keeps you going in the face of adversity?
Having no choice. Once you get to a certain point, it's like swim or, sink or swim type of thing. I think that specific to Ellie and Becks, and the reason I started it, it still isn't available. It's been almost 2 years now, and we're still the only children's brand I see out there that really has diversity at the forefront as the messaging and like the most important part of what we do. I think other brands have now, they added on as like an afterthought because it's trendy now to, to make sure that you're speaking on these messages. And I think some of them are well-intentioned for sure, but that's like everything I do, I think about that, from the books we carry to the dolls we carry, like even the doll brands that we carry. I had to remove one, even though it was super popular, because I wasn't crazy about the owners and sort of their intentions.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot that goes into that when you care about, the mission as well. But that's why I keep going, is just seeing the photos of the kids and everything. I'm just like, oh, if this isn't here, like who's gonna do it? So, and because I see that I've been doing things the hard way, each time you find something like you guys, you're like, okay, this is an easier way. And so as you go along, you just find more little tips and tricks that make processes easier and more efficient. And hopefully one day it becomes, easy-ish.
Yeah. And where can we find Ellie and Becks?
ellieandbecks.co, not com. And it's ellieandbecks.co on our Instagram, ellieandbecks.co on Facebook. And then also our website is ellieandbecks.co.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah.